Already. Well, it says we're live. That's
Wow.
exciting. Hello, Rich.
Hello.
Welcome to our Zoom interview. And thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Welcome everybody that's watching. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we're going to be having a chat to Rich about all things sports psychology in relation to croquet. The chat function is open. If you have any
Sure.
questions, then please ask, and I will pass on those questions. And I think we should just get going.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, first of all, who is Rich Waterman? Who are you? Where did you come from?
Yeah, I better make sure I don't talk for an hour about the first bit, hadn't I? Yeah. So, croquet wise, so I grew up in Buckinghamshire, actually, where I'm now with my parents tonight. And I first came across croquet when, like many people, I think, when I went to university. So I went to Merton College, Oxford, and they had this tiny little lawn. And I didn't even go near it for about a year and a half. And then a friend of mine, Tony White, who ended up playing varsity for croquet, was probably about a 5 or 6 handicap, taught myself and my friend Mike Porter, who, fun enough, I'm seeing tomorrow in High Wycombe Club, how to play croquet. And I'm like, I like this sport. And fairly quickly, wasn't a very big lawn, but fairly quickly, I was doing 12-hoop breaks on a little diddy lawn with not very good mallets. And I discovered the final year, I discovered the big lawn at Oxford in the parks and got, wow, this looks huge. And because I had a young family, I basically stopped pretty much straight after uni. I just stopped. I think, like many people, having done all, children were growing up, etc. 2012 it was, I started playing croquet again. It was a taste day at Colchester. Went along with the family. I thought, oh yeah, I remember this game. Started playing again. And I remember very clearly it was myself, my partner, and her parents, and they said, wouldn't this be a great game to play socially? And I was like, yeah, I just didn't hear the socially bit. So I became obsessed, like many people, lolly listening to this podcast, became pretty obsessed with croquet. And like, yeah, I just love the progression of it. Both codes, actually. Yeah. GC actually was what got me going again, funnily enough, because a lot of GC played at local club golf croquet. And then I joined Colchester as well. I was at Malden, and then I joined Colchester and played association croquet. And it was actually the reason I got involved in sports psychology for croquet was actually because of your dad, funnily enough.
Yeah.
Went along to be trained as a club coach, which bizarrely I ran a course last weekend, actually creating some new club coaches. And I was talking a bit about my background, my mindset background. And your dad said, it'd be great to run a croquet psychology course. And so that was the idea, and started running courses from, I think it was the next season onwards. And yeah, it's quite a cool use of all this mindset stuff that I've accumulated over the best part of 17 years now. So,
Yeah. So
yeah,
hang on a minute, hang on. Let's go back a
yeah,
little bit. What was the
yes.
mindset stuff used for before you used it for croquet?
Yeah, because it's like not normally something that someone goes, oh, I want to train in sports psychology for croquet.
Yeah.
So initially it was for me. It was back in 2006. I'd had quite a rough time, divorce, relationship breakups, all this sort of stuff. And I just want to go to something to help me sort my brain out a bit better, and I end up going to a Tony Robbins course. He's a big US life coach, literally big. He's about 6'7". In 2006, I went to an event called Unleash the Power Within. And from that point, I started using the stuff for myself, but I also then started to grow a business as well, because I sort of like, do you know what? I want to apply this to me. And that's an ongoing journey, probably a never ending ongoing journey. But I wanted to use it for the benefit of others. So it was more personal coaching initially, specialized in phobia cures for a while as well. Still do those occasionally. And then over time, it's developed into more business coaching, but there's always a lot of personal coaching involved because there's people involved. So, business, you can have the best business strategy in the world, but if the people aren't feeling great with it, then it won't work. So, yeah, my main business is coaching anyway. Just that I saw an opportunity to use these skills for croquet and peak performance in that regard. It's interesting. So I've not formally done a sports psychology degree, but I've done all these different training and things like NLP. It's called neuro linguistic programming. A lot of stuff with Tony Robbins, and then I've gone, right, how can I use these tools in peak performance in sport? I've worked with an international fencer. Oh yeah, gold medal winning karate lady from Bulgaria. That was really cool because she's only ranked about 35th in the world and she won the gold medal at the Olympics. But croquet's been the main thing because I'm always intrigued by a sport that obviously I know well. It's like, how do I apply the stuff that I know to that? So I kind of developed some tools that are very croquet specific, which has been interesting.
Well, I think we better start finding out about these tools. Now, before we, I've got a whole bunch of questions, but
Sure.
I did put out there that this was going to happen and it was going to go live. And I've already had a question in from Nathaniel, which
cool.
I'll come to in a moment. But first of all, I just want to ask a question that came in from Alex Verge. He's in Australia. She didn't really want to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to join us. So it's fine, we don't mind. So she'll watch us later. But her question, which I really like, is have you sort of got some strategies to recreate the tension of a match during practice? So she says she's never quite been able to perform in practice as well as I am able in a match. I know this. I mean, this is a really good question. I think there's going to be bunches of us out there that want to know the answer.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's different, and it's one of my hot things is quality of practice. Because so I call it practicing with purpose. So you've got to have something that you're measuring or focusing on, because otherwise what you're doing is teaching yourself to play croquet in a relatively unfocused state. So then actually that can then hang over into your competitive game where you're not focusing. And one of the things I've noticed with the really, really good players is they're really good at focusing. So how do you do that? I think there's probably two ways that I can think of. So one of which is having some sort of measurement or some sort of point scoring system. So you're replicating some sort of skill and there is an assessment of how well you've done. So I'll give an example. It might be something that's applicable to both codes is critical distance. So what distance you're hitting 50% of your shots. So you could just do some shooting practice, but actually there's not a lot of focus or pressure on that. But if you've gone, well, last time my distance was, 10 yards, say, and you just set up the 4 balls and you measure it and go, right, okay, if I hit 3 out of 4, I go back a yard. If I hit 4 out of 4, I go back 2 yards. If I only get 1 out of 4, I go forward a yard. But if all of them, I go forward 2 yards. And keep doing that. And I would recommend you do it for a timed period and actually put a timer on your watch or on a clock or something. Say 20 minutes max, because actually you want to practice with intensity and quality and go, okay, my outcome today is for my average distance to be greater than 10 yards. And that's it. So then there's pressure then, because I actually have a real reason for hitting. I think any measurement like that, or setting up, 2-yard hoop runs, how many can I get out of 10, that type of thing, measuring all that. So you've got records, and then you go, so then there's, if you normally hit 8 out of 10 of those hoops, and you hit 8 in a row and you've got 2 more to go, there's a certain element of pressure coming in there because you go, I want to hit the last 2. The other one, actually, I was reminded of, bizarrely, last weekend when I was training club coaches. And it's a really wonderful lady called Ruth, who's a fairly high handicap GC player, but has already become a GC ref, really loves the game. And they had to deliver skill sets outside, and she was delivering a skill set on how to run a hoop. And what she did at the end was she got everyone to do it, but in front of everyone else. So don't think you have to practice by yourself. It may be literally just practicing with one other person. They don't even necessarily have to be as good as you, but them watching you doing something is a whole magnitude different to just practicing by yourself and not really being that fussed about what's going on. I found that a very, very useful technique. It's just like, I know that when I'm coaching people, if I'm coaching a group and I'm demoing a shot, there's a lot of pressure there because, like, you know, you might look like an absolute numpty. In fact, Southwick the other week, I did look like a numpty because I shanked this relatively easy shot. So I think there's two examples there. So the key is make it matter. And it might be like, if you're a really good player, it might be, let's pick an example for association croquet. It might be that you go, right, I am going to attempt the second break with the ball. It's been a lead, whatever, diagonal spread, whatever it is. I'm going to do a second break with the ball and I'm going to go around and I'm going to do a triple peel. And the pressure is, if I at any point muck up, I've got to go right the way back to the start. So then you're going, actually, this counts because actually I'm going to be really annoyed if I've got to start again. The way that I practice in golf croquet actually is I play myself. So I play yellow and red and blue and black. And then actually I actually get really annoyed with myself because I end up putting myself in positions and forcing myself to play shots that I know I don't like playing. So it's almost like I'm fighting against myself all the time. It's exhausting, but actually really it reveals a lot about your competitive game.
So
so there's a couple of ideas, yeah.
With the you were talking about measuring your, you know, when you were talking about critical distances and you let's say you do 4 in a row and then if you miss you go forward a step, you move back, etc. What about, do you ever actually record it on, like, literally on a piece of paper? I mean, I think that would be huge pressure. Because you'd have to look back and go, oh my gosh.
So there'll be a lot of croquet players watching that do love a stat. I think generally it's quite appealing in games to mathematical people. So I would recommend having spreadsheet. If you're into it, have all the spreadsheets, compare what you did this time to your average, or you've probably got an idea what your average is. What's your best ever? Have I got a chance of beating my best ever? And equally pressure the other ways. What was my worst ever? I'm not having a good day, but my worst ever running these hoops is 3 out of 10. And if I miss this next one, I'm going to be 2 out of 10. So that's a different sort of pressure, which is rather than trying to beat your best, it's like, can I perform when I'm not at my best? Can I find a way to get the outcome that I want? That's also very, very useful pressure because, like, particularly in golf croquet, that's true of both forms actually. But I remember I've got a lot of strong references for golf croquet of being really in trouble in games like 4-0 down, 5-1 down, something like that, and winning. And actually, the first half of the match playing really badly, and then just trying to find somewhere where I actually can sort of pull out an okay game out of myself. And that's it's very easy to play well and win, right? But it's actually difficult to play badly and win because part of you is self-judging and going, well, I'm not playing as well as I want to. I'm not enjoying myself because it's sort of suboptimal. But it could be it's the conditions and you're both in a suboptimal space. So then it's literally just the focus on, I'm just going to find a way to get through this. And the best players are clearly very good at that. Right, you've had 2 of my Essex teammates on, Debbie and Aston. They're both really good at finding a way to win, and that's a more of a resilient mindset, I would call it. Yeah,
they do dig in.
Yes, they're
Debbie
very
is
tenacious.
very good at digging in. I've played Debbie, and she has beaten me for that reason.
Me too.
Okay, I've got a question here from Nathaniel. So,
okay,
how to care about the reasons for losing without caring about the loss?
Oh, beauty, love that. Yeah. So that's great.
That
Okay, there's a fair bit to this. So I'll try and break it down into sort of digestible steps. So It's funny enough, I invented a grid week before last. I was running the course for your dad, and he just sort of asked me to just talk about some thoughts around coaching and things like that. But it also applies to competitive games as well. And with competitive games, you've got execution. Like, did I actually play well? What was the process like? And that could be poor, it could be good. And then outcome. Did I get a poor outcome? Did I get a good outcome? Now that could be per shot, but it could also be per game. So obviously, if you play well and you win a game, you feel good and you go, that's great. And it's like reinforces some good stuff. If you play badly and lose, that's actually really useful because your brain's got the feedback that you mess something up. And then, as he has been correctly identified, is you've got to separate what happened from the emotion. So it's almost like you take the emotion, go, I feel bad about that loss. Right, okay, I'll chuck that away because actually that the only reason about feeling bad about the loss in terms of sports performance is that it informs you that you probably did something wrong, probably. Well, could be the other player played well, but that might be a consideration. We chuck away the emotion and we're left with the learning, which is, okay, there are some things there that maybe I did that caused the loss. And it could be, like, one thing that I definitely do in association is if it's an unusual lawn position, I tend to rush it because I almost want to get out of the situation. Or it may be it's highlighted again a particular weakness of my game. So it might be I'm rushing poorly, maybe the ball's jumping a bit, or so I haven't got a flat swing. Great. All we're looking for is the learning. We don't need the emotion anymore. If you hold on to emotion, this is what causes losing streaks. So basically, if you hold on to the emotion of the loss, part of your brain is still focusing on the loss and how that felt, which means actually you're taking away your ability to fully commit to the next game. That's why you get losing streaks, because you're thinking, I lost again, or like I'm a loser, or I can't play under pressure, or I can't play at this club, or I can't play when it's windy, or I can't play against certain opponents. It's all made up. It's like we gather information and make up stories about ourselves. We obviously want to keep the good ones. The negative ones are made up. So we just have to accept they're made up and let them go. But he's nailed it there fundamentally. In that little feedback matrix, obviously playing well, getting a good outcome, winning, good, reinforces good stuff. Playing badly, losing, good, feedback. The emotion, once you think, oh, I need to look at that, then the emotion is not actually needed anymore. It's just to bring your attention to it. So you don't need the emotion anymore. Just let it go, throw it away, put it in the bin. I actually physically do this and chuck it. The most dangerous combination in croquet is playing poorly and winning. Because then your brain's going, oh, that was good, I won. And then it's a tendency to ignore all the stuff that you got away with, and it may be because the opponent played that little bit worse, or you got lucky, or you just didn't stack too many negative things that you got away with it. But that's how bad habits accumulate. So actually, it's really good to review games afterwards anyway,
whether
and
you
you'll have someone.
lose.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you'll play well and lose, and you go, might have been the opponent just played really, really well. That's okay. I'm more happy about the fact that I'm playing well because if I do that, I'm going to win more games than I lose, likely. And there might be some stuff you haven't noticed as well. It might be, did I really take into account the lawn conditions, or are there some slopes that I hadn't considered on the lawn? There might be something I'm missing when I thought I'd played well. But sometimes you play well, opponent plays better, you lose. That's okay. That's actually good for you because you're playing well.
But how do you literally throw that thought away? I mean, you can't reach into your head. So, well, how? Do you think of something else? Do you? I can't.
Yeah. So it's a great question. So I have a deliberate process, and it works most of the time because I'm a human being as well. Your husband Dave's witnessed where my process didn't work. I just went spiral downwards. I have a process which is, you know what, I feel bad. Usually I felt bad. I lost, didn't play well. So I go through, okay, right. What is it specifically that I think I need to learn from that game? and I'll go through it and I go, yeah, I'll probably even write it down somewhere. I've got a page on my phone, which is things I've learned from croquet, and most of them have come from losses. And then, because really, why does the brain feed you these negative or disempowering emotions, even though all emotions are useful? It's basically a warning system for something's off, mate. You've got to sort that out. So actually go and do it early doors. As soon as you've walked off the court or the opponent's shaking your hand, give yourself some time. What am I going to learn from this? Bang, bang, bang. Right. Okay. Is there anything else? Not obviously. Right. I don't need it anymore. So what I do, so I literally imagine myself just grabbing the emotion out of my head and just throw it away. Or I'm a big believer in displacement. So basically, what is it that I want to go back to, which fundamentally is playing good croquet? So I've got a checklist on my phone. For me, what's good croquet for me? And also another list, which is all my achievements. So I actually go through every single great game I played. It's not necessarily winning a trophy, but every great game I played. So me and Brian Havel have a joke about me beating Rob Fulford in the best of the three, right? Because I mention it all the time because I'm really pleased that I did it. But that's a great reference for me because I was only like about a 6 handicap there, but I just happened to play really, really well on that day. So the challenge is you had a bad game, you lost. Your challenge, your natural thing is to dwell on it. You only need to dwell on it to learn. Once you've learned, chuck it away, or just go, right, yeah, I'm done now. Right, I want to go back to what do I want? So a lot of people in croquet focus on what they don't want. I don't want to lose this person. If I lose this person, I might get knocked out of the competition. I've played this shot badly before. I might again. So immediately the brain goes, oh, great. Well, you're focusing on that. Let me give it to you. So to reset from the loss, you need to go to what do I want? And it can be combinations of reminders of technique or play, and or I definitely recommend reminders of actually great games or great wins you've had, and just sit with that. Keep and be relentless with it. Keep feeding yourself that to displace everything else. Because any debris or detritus left from behind from that previous loss will stack up your chance of losing the next one. So hence you get the streak. And equally why you get winning streaks as well. Win, win, win. Good, good, good. Happy, happy, happy. Relax, relax, relax. Play good croquet, play good croquet. There's an upward spiral as well as a downward spiral. Yeah. I could talk all day on this stuff, couldn't I? Right, I'll be quiet. I'm sure there's more stuff to ask.
There's always questions. Derek is here and he says, is your opponent important or relevant?
Yes and yes.
Yeah.
So primary focus is you and your play. 100%. Play to your natural strengths. The top players, I think, can adapt their games to accommodate the opponent they're playing. They're good enough. Your husband Dave, right? He's so experienced in association croquet, and he's seen so many different scenarios that he might look at and think, actually, I'm going to put the opponent in certain positions because I know they don't like them. But I think that's upper level psychology. First and foremost, like, how am I playing? What do I want to do? Let me do that well. And then, okay, then it's an awareness of the opponent. So where are they at? Like, particularly like something like association, doesn't really matter what the level. If they're not playing very well, I don't really want to give them the opportunity of an easy start. So there can be a tendency, which is, I'm playing well, I'm feeling dominant, I'm well ahead, I can afford to be a little bit loose and take a few more chances. That's when the opponent gets a hit in and suddenly goes around with one ball and their confidence has come straight back. Golf croquet, and I think we have maybe talked about this somewhat before, and I'm not encouraging gamesmanship, but if I'm not playing very well golf croquet, I will just take a little bit more time just to compose myself, not to the point where I'm deliberately slowing up play, but I'm just making sure that I'm not rushing, because there's a tendency when you're not playing well to rush. So just make sure you're going through your routine. And equally, if the opponent's not playing well, you want them to play as many hoops as possible in that state. So it might be that you're able to play a little bit quicker. Now, it's up to them how quickly they play, but you might draw them into a slightly quicker game. It's their choice, right? But I learned this actually from my days of playing semi-professional table football. When someone's not playing very well, you want to play as many points as possible, because actually, or as many hoops as possible, because they're more likely to effectively be on what I call tilt mode. And you see that with really good players. They just lose it. So actually, they might play quicker too. And if you're able to still play well quicker, then you can incorporate that. So, GC, I'm thinking about, is this person good at clearances? If they're not, I'm happy to put them in positions where I'm making them clear me. Are they good at running long hoops? If not, I'm going to ignore relatively long hoop opportunities for them. Association, are there certain skills that I know they're not good at? Can I put them in that position? But it's a secondary consideration to me playing croquet my way well, and then account for the opponent, I think. And sometimes you've got to deal with it, right? We know, both you and I know some players in the particular association circuit that are really slow, and I'm not slow. Well, you're super quick, right? I'm quite quick player, and I have to have ways to deal with that. It's like, okay, I know they're going to play quite slowly, so what am I going to do where it doesn't put me off my game?
Frustration is a huge thing in croquet. I spend so much of my time being frustrated, whether it's frustration with your opponent, frustration with yourself, frustration with the lawn, the hoops, the balls, because they feel different on a particular day because it's particularly hot or it's wet. Frustration is, and it's such a strange feeling. How do you get rid of that, actually? My question.
So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the reason we play croquet is we like playing great croquet in great conditions, right? The outside factors, like, say, rain or wind or lawn conditions, or court conditions, sorry, more accurately, that's a great opportunity where to have that adaptable and flexible mindset and go, do you know what, actually, this is how it is. It's this is the reality. Is, I remember the World Championships, I think down in New Zealand, there were some ridiculously low scores because the conditions are impossible. But you just got to find a way that works. This is the finding a way in a suboptimal scenario to find a way that does actually work. And the really good players are very, very flexible in going, do you know what? Realistically, and I think this is certainly true of the Mac, is the conditions are very difficult. Delayed TPs were not, triple pulls are not very easy things to do at all. So actually it probably made sense not to try them, because you're introducing too much risk. So outside factors, it is that acceptance piece. This is how it is. Okay, right. How should I play given it's like that way? I can't suddenly sit there going, oh, I wish it wasn't raining, or I wish the wind would stop blowing. It is. So just that acceptance, and then, right, what do I want to do with that? Opposition players, I think for you and I particularly, is that slowness of play piece. And it's just that, again, it's that acceptance that, do you know what, that's what they're going to do. That's how they're going to approach it. So how do I want to deal with that? I think actually in some ways golf croquet is harder because it's more of an interaction back and forth. So you just go, okay, what they're actually doing, let me give you what's called a reframe. In other words, change the meaning of something. The slower they are, it's giving me more time to think about how I'm going to beat them. So there's a different way of looking at it. Association is like, okay, do you know what? Such and such a player's on a break. I know that they're going to take a long time. So what do I want to do with that time? Do I want to have a chat with my mates? Do I want to think about how the game's gone to that point? So you can actually use the time. And it's quite funny. I was playing. And it is that, again, taking emotion is, I accept I am frustrated. It's like, don't make it wrong. It's like, I know that I'd rather be playing great croquet in great conditions. Okay, I can't do that today. Right. It's actually normal for me to be annoyed or frustrated. If that's a
And
normal
stomp my
reaction.
feet like my 3-year-old son.
So don't make the emotion wrong. I don't make you wrong, and then just go, oh, how can I use it? How can I use it? Generally, is how can I use this extra time? Because really, fundamentally, if someone's playing quick and is trying to rush you, you don't have to play quick or be rushed. In fact, I'd advise that you don't get pulled into that because people will try and do that to you as well. So yeah, and sometimes we're human and none of that works, and it's going to be one of those days. That's okay. How do I play frustrated? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a good question. How do I play for okay.
Yeah.
We might have to do another chat, Rich. Okay. I haven't asked any of my questions, but I've got another question here. And this
Okay,
was from
cool.
Debbie.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Debbie, teammate Debbie Lines, women's world champion.
I know.
Debbie Lines.
Is she going to ask, what do you do when you've got a team captain playing badly and you don't know what to say to them?
That's not what she asked. So she says, hi, Rich. Sometimes I think about my swing too much. And then it's not as smooth. How do I get myself back into automatic mode? Or should I?
Yeah.
Is the question.
Yeah. That's a great question. So it's interesting, actually. The course I was running up last weekend, my glamorous assistant was Ralph Allen, Dr. Ralph Allen. And he calls himself the swing doctor. So he's got like 5 areas that you look at in a swing. And I think, do you know what, that's a really useful way to break down your swing. I don't need to talk about it. Basically, it talks about stance, talks about grip. He talks about kind of letting the mallet do the work, how to accelerate or not to accelerate, things like that. That's great stuff for practice, just playing with different aspects of the swing. And in a game, I think it's like the worst thing you can do. So I think my favourite example of this is, I think it was the US Masters Golf. Pretty sure it was Greg Norman, the Australian golfer, quite a famous guy. He was miles ahead, and it was Nick Faldo that was trying to catch him up. And I think you can almost see Greg Norman started thinking about the fact he was ahead and actually then trying to control his swing consciously. And the wheels just completely fell off. So our best croquet and years of practice, hopefully, were all the best stuff's done unconsciously. So if you're playing in a game, I think there's almost an element of just keep doing what you've always done, and maybe have a trigger word to tell you to remind yourself of a good swing. So it's something I've actually years and years ago I was chatting to another mutual friend of ours, Dave Kibble, and we were talking about analysis of this lady called Sean Bylot, University of Chicago. She looked at people putting in golf under stress, and she broke it into 3 groups. So one of which was they would analyze every single bit of their swing. So how were they standing? How much did they flex their knees? How hard were they gripping the club? Where were they gripping the club? How far are they taking it back? How far are they putting it through? How are they lining up? All these sort of things. Blah, blah, blah. Fine practicing, put them under pressure with the crowd, fell to bits with that approach. Conscious analysis of swing. The ones that did better, but not the best, were ones that broke it down into chunks. So it might have been stance, or it might be lining up, stance, grip, swing. So break it down into chunks, better under pressure. The ones that did the best had a trigger word for their swing that just meant something to them. So they practiced good quality swinging, and they might have a word like smoother, which is actually really good for a croquet swing, smoother. And so that's all you do. You trust yourself. The way you practice has been conditioned in there. So all I need to do is to remind myself that I actually do know how to swing a croquet mallet. So just having a word like smooth or easy that you can say, what it does, it floods the brain with what's called an auditory or language. So you don't have space then for all these doubts and, I missed this last one, blah, blah, blah. And funnily enough, Debbie asked the question, because one of the things that I flood my brain with, if I'm on a big pressure shot, when I come up to the shot, I go, Debbie Line says I'm a good shot, because in my first encounters, she told me that once. I'm like, I've got a lot of respect for her. She told me that, and it was genuine. I'm like, Debbie Line thinks I'm a good shot. So I always say that to myself on a pressure shot. And then I do smooth when I'm swinging. So I'm taking things back to unconscious, basically. Do not try and pick apart your swing and little. It might be that you just look down, your feet are like splayed horrifically, and you go, oh yeah, okay, don't do that again. Right, what do I want to do? I want straight feet like this. Bang, one thing. That's okay if you pick up on a small fault that you just didn't do what you normally did. You don't want to start picking apart your swing consciously during competition, because it's just, and I know because I've done it, it's horrific. So just go back to the routine, go back to one word that just pushes everything else out. That would be my tip. That's good. So we're going to win. I see Debbie winning all her games for Essex this year, and I'm like, yeah, that was that. It was that one tip, wasn't it, Deb? She go, yeah, it was.
Someone genuinely said to me partway through a game, it wasn't a proper game, it was just a club game, but someone said, as I came off the lawn because I just missed a shot, so your swing got a bit wonky. 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. Yeah. I couldn't hit a ball for 3 months.
Yeah,
until I think it was Dave that turned around and went, "Are you kidding me? You literally have the straightest swing ever."
Yeah.
And it was I needed someone to tell me that. So it's really interesting that you said you actually remember Debbie or somebody saying to you this thing. And actually having something like that, I think is massive.
Yeah. If you look at most elite players, look at their swing, their backswing's crooked. It's just the mallet generally comes through very, very straight. So actually someone say to you, like, for example, your backswing's crooked, it's like, so what? I don't care. Am I hitting the ball straight? I'm telling you, I reference your swing. I think you've got an amazing swing. I think you're an extremely good shot. And so maybe use that as a reference, or maybe use a certain number of hit-ins as a reference. Some really crucial hit-ins that I'm sure you've done over the years. That's very, very powerful references. Even if you miss that time, you go, yeah, do you know what? I gave myself a chance of being there or thereabouts. Sometimes you'll hit an amazing ball and it'll just peel off. It's okay. You hit a good shot.
Okay, we've got some more questions coming in. Debbie Davidoff says, great discussion. How to keep from making a small problem into a big one. In other words, keep from becoming afraid of missing shots during a game.
Yeah. So it's almost like, excuse my French, it's almost like a shit magnet. So you got something negative.
Yeah.
And then the brain goes looking for all the other negatives, all the other games where you stuffed up from this position, all the other times where you played that similar shot badly. And your brain goes off gathering evidence for like, oh, it's a disaster. Now, what the brain's trying to do is to say, yes, you've done this before. And then if you apply a bit of psychology to it, yes, I've done this before, and also I know how to remedy it. And equally, it's the same as before. You've got to move on from the emotion and from and maybe we sort of expand the psychology bit a little bit more here. Fundamentally, for you to move on, there's actually only really 3 senses you need to be aware of. So imagine, human beings have got 5 senses. We don't tend to, in sports psychology, use a lot of smell or taste, although it can be useful. You might have a favourite perfume or aftershave that puts you in a good mood or a good state. It might be a favourite drink or food.
Shampoo.
There we go.
I wash my hair with the same shampoo at tournament
day. There we go. Yeah, cool. And that'd be partly routine and partly habit, and partly because of the smell and stuff that creates. Yeah, do you know what? I'm in a good place to play good croquet. But fundamentally, you're dealing with sight, visual. You're dealing with sound, auditory, and you're dealing with kinesthetic, which is touch and feel. So with the sight thing, that can be external. So it could be stuff that's around you and something might be bothering you. So actually just change your position or change where you're sitting. Or if there's something that's, distracting you that can be dealt with, I don't know, something's fluttering, or ask for it to be, put away or moved or what have you. Or if there's someone standing there, ask them to move. Visual often is pictures in your head. So this would come more under strategy, where we go, am I making pictures in my head that are unhelpful? Okay, well, I can change the quality of that. We call them submodalities in coaching, but it's basically something that's bright, something that's colourful, something that's through your eyes, something that's in focus, has more of an impact on your brain. So if you're starting to make pictures of stuff that's not helpful, make them black and white, push them away, make them fuzzy, blur them, imagine them ripping up or disappearing or dissolving, and then bring something else in. Again, this is displacement thing. Bring in a picture of what you do want and just keep doing it until you make yourself see what you want rather than what you don't want. Because the brain, you get what you focus on. So if the brain's focusing on something that you don't want, you will get that thing you don't want. Like it might be, I'm 5-0 up. Oh, I can see so-and-so coming back and beating me 7-5. Fun enough, you massively increase the chance of that happening. Same with language, right? So if language is sort of relatively loud, it's sharp, it's of a certain tone, a certain pace, it'll have more of an impact. It can be external language. You'll see some players will talk to themselves or say stuff out loud. More commonly with croquet, I think it tends to be an internal dialogue. So it's like, okay, well, just turn the volume down on that. Or maybe whatever you're saying to yourself, like, you always do this. Well, say it backwards. This, do, always, you. It messes with it, takes it away. More importantly, what do I want to say to myself? Are there certain statements like, me playing great croquet is, and it might be focus, stance, grip, swing, let them out do the work. I don't know, something like that. Or even better, I think, is great questions. Like, okay, how am I going to play well in the next game? What am I going to do to play well? So it's always a positive question, and then so it creates a bigger answer. Again, you're displacing maybe some negative thoughts, some negative statements about yourself with something positive. Kinesthetics, touch, feel, that can be internal feelings, which maybe that is another session to talk about. Externally, just literally breathe differently. I use something called box breathing, where I breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, pause for 4. Drink, hydrate, move, just change things, change your clothing, take off a layer, put on a layer, put on some gloves between games, whatever it is. Just change something. So you've always got those 3 senses: visual, external, internal, auditory, language, external, language in your head. And then kinesthetic, you've got feelings where you can actually move them and mess with them and chuck them away as well again. But also, like, just how am I breathing? How am I drinking? What am I wearing? Stuff like that. That's how you get rid of, that's how you don't accumulate the negative. Accumulating the negative, there's only one way of doing that, which is, this is awful. Okay, let me make it personal. Let me make it about me. Let me go through all my archives of all the other times when I've messed up, and let me just go and open up all the drawers, pull it all out, and just wallow in it. Well, that's actually, it's an easy thing to do because I've done it. And I've done it even knowing sports psychology, but it's a choice to go, no, do you know what? What do I need to learn? Let it go, change something, and move on, basically. And that's it. That's what the great players do, is they're able to reset and move on. So they're always giving themselves a chance of winning, even if they're 25-0 down or 6-0 down in GC, they will still give them a chance of winning. And actually playing well when you're up against it, even if you don't win, that'll pay off down the line as well. Yeah.
Can you just come with me to all of my games? You could just sit there and I'll feed you and give you drinks and
I'm like a caddy that goes around on the top. And the other really important thing as well is give yourself permission to be human. Like, I know all this stuff, and I have had to have matches that have been absolutely horrific, and it's actually taken me a little while to adjust to it, but eventually I have. So it's okay. It's okay that some days this stuff doesn't work.
Okay, well, we've got another question.
Yeah, okay. Go for it.
This is Tony Elkin, and he says,
okay,
Hi, during a match, during a shot, my mind introduces distracting thoughts about overcoming anxiety and overthinking the mechanics that is usually straightforward to achieve in practice.
Okay. Yeah. Really common, right? So there's two answers to that, which are going to build on some of my earlier answers. So one of which is what I call baseline anxiety. So I would really encourage croquet players that maybe struggle a little bit with this sort of kind of competitive edge, being a bit nervy, being anxious, is spend a lot of time away from the lawns, walking, meditating, mindfulness, all these things. So you're just generally lowering your baseline anxiety. I had it last year. I had a lot of people know I had a relationship breakup. So my anxiety was through the roof. Well, anxiety was just like a lot of stress and worry about I didn't know what was going to happen next. And me trying to play a croquet tournament with that level of stress and anxiety and knowing all the stuff that I did, it was really variable. Like, so I've just had some just like horrific tournaments and long streaks I've never had before. Situations in the counties where my brain's going, yeah, you'll finish from here. Like 2 balls, you've got to make 3 hoops and a peg. Yeah, you'll definitely do this. And then the absolute shock of I couldn't deal with it. So I think there's a baseline anxiety piece there, which is just do a lot of work outside the lawns to get yourself in a good place. Because then it's almost like the competitive stress can cause things to bubble over if you're not careful. And a lot of things I've talked about to this point probably won't work, quite frankly, because like it's like a tidal wave. And you're trying to be like a King Canute, turning it all back, turning the waves back. It's not going to happen. That being said, I think there's a few things that really what we want to do is get the brain when we're playing and it's a lot of pressure, get the brain back into unconscious state. So one of the best ways, certainly from an auditory perspective, is hum to yourself. Doesn't necessarily have to be out loud, like humming tunes, like whether it's a song or a nursery rhyme or something like that. That takes the brain away from trying to consciously control what's going on because that will mess you up. So humming works, counting works, just counting up and down, using that keyword like smooth or easy. What we're trying to do basically is flood our senses with something that is not this conscious kind of micromanaging. Oh my God, I'm really struggling with this. I want to take control of everything. That is literally the worst thing you can do. What you actually need to do is distract yourself to a point where you're just playing croquet again. And it's like the situation's almost irrelevant. Like, for example, if I'm on a finishing turn against a top level player, very easy for my brain to go, oh, I'm about to beat so and so. Well, immediately now, that one piece of distraction has massively reduced my chance of playing great croquet because now I'm focusing on something else. So if that does come up, I might go, yeah, I might. That's a way to do it. Just keep playing the croquet that I know how to play. So then I'd come back to humming. So for some reason, I always do. I quite often hum like Star Wars tunes or Raise the Lost Ark and stuff like that. I have no idea why. Probably because it worked for me once. But that is really good because it takes the brain away from conscious control, and that's your enemy. It's just like, what is it that's going to get me back? And it might be like you might just do this with your fingers, like just keep them cycling through. It just gives you something just else to think about. So you might just stop and just do that for a little bit. But humming works very, very well. Yeah, that's been proven to work in by other people researching sports psychology. Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about playing in a team. It's interesting. You talked about the Mac earlier on.
Yeah.
So croquet is an individual sport. We're on the lawn, generally we're on the lawn on our own, whether but when you go you start like league matches, you're part of your team all the way up through to the McRobinson Shield or the Open Shore. I feel it feels different because you've got a different kind of pressure.
Yes.
Because you're not just gonna, if you screw up, it's not just you. that you're letting
Yeah.
down. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about the pressure that the guys have in playing for England. That's just insane to me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
swore many years ago I'd never do it. But even playing as part of your club team, for
Yes.
many of us, that can actually bring a different level of pressure into the game when you might already feel pressure.
Yeah.
How do you sort of deal with that, the level and the level and the level of pressure and what it feels like?
Yeah. So again, I would say focus. So, um, if I look at another individual sport that kind of done then occasionally does team stuff, I always think about golf and the Ryder Cup. And if you look at that, so you look at examples of great teams, which are, you know, traditionally the American teams individually were much stronger than the European team, but the European team had a much better team ethos, much better support. And there was an element of momentum there that was created by the team culture. So I think if I'm looking at a higher level, um, don't underestimate the power of having a good team. And I'm doing the Mac review at the moment, so I won't give too much away. But traditionally, England, we've won because we had stronger players. Fundamentally, we hadn't really looked at the team stuff so much, but there is increasing consideration now about what does make a good team. So if we look at just that dynamic, I think it's really important to think about, okay, again, what do I want to think about? Well, realistically, is it realistic that you be part of a decent team, and if someone played badly, you go, "Oh, yeah, well, they cost us the match." Well, if you think like that, you probably shouldn't be in a team anyway. So, like, the concept of I don't want to play badly because what will other people think of me is fundamentally a lie, really, because most people will go, "Don't worry about it, it's fine. You know what? We all have bad days. It's okay." So, what I tend to encourage people that are playing in team matches is first of all, don't apologise. I'm probably the worst one for breaking the rule, which is like, do you know what? Unless you were like chatting to your mates and then did something stupid tactically, okay, fair enough, that is your fault, right? If you play badly, you play badly. That's what it is. Don't apologise for that. What's the positive? The positive is how can I support my teammates so they can play the best croquet? And the key is actually to ask, because some people want to be left alone. And they want to be told afterwards, that was phenomenal. I was just like, amazing what you did then at the end, blah, blah, blah. And you are brilliant. They just want to hear the praise at the end. They want to be left alone. Um, some people really thrive off constant praise. And some are different again. So it's ask. Actually, you've got an opportunity here to set your teammate or teammates up with an amazing environment. And one of the things I definitely do a lot when I'm Essex Association captain in the counties is I just go around a lot and I check in with people, but I also have got a fairly good idea what it is that makes them tick. Give an example, right? I mean, I don't think it's any secret here. So Aston has got a phenomenal competitive mindset. And I know if he's annoyed with himself, he will go off behind a shed or whatever, give himself a proper telling off, because that works for him. And then he'll come back. He doesn't need me to say anything. I know that he can reset himself. So all I'm going to just do is just tell him how amazing he is and what a great shot that was, what have you. I don't need to do anything. Others might need a bit more one-to-one mentoring. I remember playing with a player who was a very high handicap, bit sort of stand-in for one of the matches, and all I was doing was just constantly reassuring him. And equally, I've played in golf croquet doubles matches where one of the opposition players, has completely and utterly destroyed their teammate by criticising them all the time. I remember turning to my teammate and going, all we've got to do is just let this match go on for long enough that we'll effectively be playing against one person. And that's how it played out. So I think, yes, it is an individual sport. And I do think that you focusing on how can I make this a great experience for my teammates? So I need to find out what that's like. I think that's a great thing to focus on because you adding the pressure of I want to win and I might let my teammates down. That's not great focus. That is literally weight.
So change your
And
focus.
Change the focus fundamentally. I like the fact that you've given a one sentence answer to the question that was better than my waffle.
Well, all I'm basically hearing reframe, reset,
different meaning,
change.
Yeah.
Is
That's
kind
it.
of there's a
Okay.
theme to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Well, and let's set that up properly. So it's like that's exactly correct. And the first stage is awareness. Be aware of what's going on. Yeah. Reframe, give it a different meaning. Okay, great. Right, reset everything. Yeah, and then you can instigate change, do something differently, and off you go. It is that simple. It's just that it doesn't always that easy to implement it. But fundamentally, if you can catch yourself and with teammates knowing how they play, so like I'll give an example of this. Like, so my Welsh teammate Ian Burridge, he's high energy, right? He's high energy, quick. If something goes wrong, he likes to get it out of his system. So I'm not going to coach him to chill out. That'd be bonkers, right? It's not the way he plays. But equally for other players, that's exactly what they do have to do. They do need to chill out a bit and just not make it so important. So it's just knowing your audience a little bit. And we're all different. We all play well under different emotional sort of set of an emotional environment, I suppose, really.
We've got 4 minutes to the hour. We might
talk really fast.
We might overrun.
I'll talk more concisely.
We overrun. It doesn't. Nobody cares, surely.
Okay.
I've got another question here. This is from Tim Crowder.
Yeah.
Hi,
I know Tim very well. Yeah.
He says, "Hi, Rich. Do you ever use headphones for practice?"
I don't. I don't necessarily it's a bad thing because, like, if you've got headphones with like music and stuff in there that puts you into a sort of subconscious state, then it's probably a good place to play good croquet and learn from. It's then a question of, and the rules are always changing on these things, aren't they? But I'm very aware of starting to use aids that might get outlawed and me getting dependent on them. But I think there is a use in practice for using headphones to put because the brain learns better in certain states. So we basically there are certain brain waves, alpha, beta, theta waves, and all these other sort of things. There are certain brain waves that change when you focus, and sometimes like music and stuff like that can enable us to go into that. Croquet's played well in a kind of a semi-trance state. So actually using headphones to maybe get yourself in that state for practice is not a bad idea at all, because it means you're actually going to be practicing with a high quality.
So I guess, I mean, I've always been aware that people learn in different ways. People learn, some people need to be physically doing the thing that you're learning. Some people are quite happy to read a book. Some people just need it on a big board in front of them, or they just need to watch it happening.
Correct.
And I guess this may be part of that. It's about learning how you need to learn best. Yeah.
Success leaves clues, right? It's one of the important things is have a think about your best croquet and what was it that led to that being played. And so look to replicate that. Often people can be pulled into looking for new things, but actually repeating stuff that worked in the past would be a really smart thing to do in terms of improving the quality of your croquet. That includes shot routine and everything else, but I'm thinking more general emotional preparation. There's certain things that I do that put me personally in a better place. That might involve headphones. That might involve, listening to music right until when you're playing, for example.
Okay.
Definitely viable. Yeah.
So I've got one more thing that I want to talk about. And it's interesting because we have been talking about, we're talking a bit about the Mac, but actually you've been talking about counties as well.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of in the same theme. So this is about selection.
Oh, okay.
Which so a lot of croquet players think, selections, this is sort of a top level, being selected for the Mac or being selected for the President's Cup, the top 8 players or whatever.
Yes.
But actually selection starts to happen. Well, in my experience, it was actually at club level. I was super excited to be selected for the league.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I got to play, and this is in the first
Yes.
year that I played croquet. We were in the B League, and
Nice.
I was really excited. I was like, my God,
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
they
Yeah. I
picked
get that.
me. They want me on the team. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then there's the counties, then there's representing the CA, then there's representing
Mm.
the women for me, then there's,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
levels and levels of selection.
Yep.
So the big question is, what happens if you don't get selected?
Exactly.
And how do you
Exactly.
deal with that? Because you had this
Mm.
expectation that maybe you would be, and or you
Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
hard, and then it doesn't
Yeah.
happen. Now, I'm going to give you I'm paraphrasing a bit. It's
Yeah.
Dave actually said, because I've talked
Mm.
quite a lot to Dave about this. Dave, my husband, if nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he basically said croquet is an individual sport. So
Yes.
you should always strive to be the best individual player, never
Mm.
strive to be part of a team, because that's
Mm.
bonkers. That's not
Mm.
what croquet is about.
Mm.
So
Mm.
basically he's saying, don't be disappointed if you're not part of a team. Only be disappointed if you haven't played the best you can.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
quite an interesting. I think he's right, and it's great. And
Mm.
I'd never thought about it before,
Mm.
but it still doesn't answer, how do you deal with the disappointment?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So it's like, so here's a great example of like what's in my control and what's not in my control. And I think even more so at county level, you might have county captains that have kind of personal favourites or friends, and may make choices. I hope I don't do that. That are irrational. I know certain examples of that for sure. And so I think there's a couple of things there, right? Which is like, can I individually put myself in a position where I am? You can't not pick me. So that is in my control. If I can either get my performances or grade to a point where, do you know what, everyone would think you're bonkers for not picking me. And yet there are examples, and there's some very sort of long running feuds in croquet where you could argue that happens, where someone really, absolutely mind blowing, they weren't picked. I think a good, if it's bothered you, I think a good approach, because they're allowed to do it, is like you go to the relevant person for selection and go, why was it? What were the factors that I have done that put me in contention to be picked? I think it's good to reinforce that. What have I done that was in consideration? And equally, what were the factors that ended up against me and clearly outweighed the choice thing, and so I can learn from it, right? And fundamentally, even at the our selectors level for what's now Croquet England, um, there's going to be doesn't matter how subjective the selection process is, there's always going to be an element of bias in there, even if it's not deliberate or intended. So I'm like, okay, for me, how I'd want to do it is, what can I do to put myself in the strongest position to be selected? If I don't get selected, let me understand the reasons behind them. I might not necessarily agree with them, but you know what? At least I'm aware of and what would make me more likely to be selected next time. That'd be useful information for me.
So what you're saying once
Yeah,
again is, somehow you're making this into a learning opportunity.
yeah, yeah. You have to, otherwise it just feels horrible, and that's it, right? Um, and are you going to be uh, are you going to be a welcome addition to the team? Are you going to improve the performance of other players that are there? That might be a consideration for selection. And like, for example, you know what? Someone like Dave, for example, I know that he tends to go in his own little world, but you know what? His knowledge and experience is vast. So as a team, I'm like, personally, I'd want to have access to that knowledge and experience. I do think you're right. I think very much where Croquet is at the moment is, it's like, okay, can we pick the six best players, say for the Mac, for example, can we pick the six best players, and do we think we can make some decent double teams out of it? That's probably the way things have gone to this point. I would probably argue that if it's a marginal selection, how they would fit into the team or how it might impact doubles pairings might be a consideration. I don't know. I'm not a selector. But for me, I'm trying to strip as much emotion out as possible. You know, for example, as a croquet player, I might be very realistic about me and the standard I'm playing about my chances of being selected. I know after my season last year, me being picked for Wales this season is marginal. If they say I'm not picked for the home internationals, I'll go, fair enough. That's not an excuse for the selectors that are watching to not pick me, but it could happen, right? I didn't play well last year. So I might be realistic about where I'm playing at. Equally, I might be in a situation where I'm actually underestimating where I'm at. I might be surprised to be selected. I might even think, am I worthy of being part of that team? And I might be in a situation potentially where I'm overestimating where I'm at. Like you know you can play good croquet, but realistically, the last 6 months or a year or whatever, you haven't been playing very good croquet. So they might be picking you based on that. And so, and someone like, some of the more experienced players in the team, people like, Mark Avery, Jamie, James Deeth in the past, obviously people like Dave, Steve Munner, these sort of people, they've got a big history of playing croquet at a very high level. But there might be someone that in the last year has got a very compelling argument, and the selectors might say, we'd rather pick someone that's got that form. And that may or may not be the correct decision. It's just a criteria. And I'll give an example. So it's an interesting one, right? The conditions I'm not giving too much away to anyone else. The conditions at the last match were sometimes extremely difficult, right? They were not easy conditions regardless. Like the hoops were not easy, etc., etc.
We were watching. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can see across all the teams, there was high levels of nerves for at least the first couple of days. Very high level, like definitely impacting play. Well, to my mind, with that being like too big in what I do are, like that means they're not mentally prepared. And there's also an argument to say, if you've not played in it before, for example, can you get mentally prepared for that? Or is it useful to have people that have played there before? You could see that, I mean, just pick an example. Like Jamie Birch, Mark Avery, they kind of slotted into it a bit quicker. Well, why? Because they're used to it. They're used to it. And that's a factor as well. And we don't know. Like in a select discussion, they might decide that such and such a factor is the most important, and it may or may not play out. I mean, we won, so that was good, but there's definitely things to learn. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. And then, like, how do we put the team together? And I do think, just speaking a little bit out of turn, because I haven't done the review yet, but we as a country, and even though I'm half Welsh, I'm also half English, England could definitely do a better job as a team. If you look at the other countries, we could definitely do a better job, and that's something we're going to look at.
Well, okay. I've got one more question. Okay, bringing it back to and it's obviously I care about England winning, obviously, yes. But I also care about all of us winning at club level. Doubles. Okay, so we talk about teams. Okay, I just want to go back and talk about doubles really quickly.
Yeah.
Whether it's AC or GC, how do you kind of? Oh, I don't. Okay, so this is more about rhythm.
Yes.
So when you're playing on your own, you're in a rhythm.
Yeah.
And you've got your own process and all the rest of it. When you're playing in doubles, it might be that. So sometimes I get a bit nervous because my opponent is kind of there next to me and watching me, or I'm constantly thinking, if it's AC and I'm on the lawn and I'm halfway around and my break's just falling apart and it's getting worse and worse. All I can think is, oh no, they must just be dying inside watching this. And that's all I can think about. How do you how do you reframe that? How do you shift that sort of internal feeling? Because obviously it's going to make me play worse. And I can't believe I'm the only person out there. So I'm asking it for everybody.
Yeah. And I think it's really different for golf, croquet, and association. So golf, croquet, one of the things I'm always doing is checking in with someone, and then particularly if they're less experienced than me, I'm always saying, if they say, well, what do we think we should do here? I'm always encouraging my doubles partner to say what they want to do, and then also, if I've got more experience and more tactical knowledge, I'll say, look, our other options are this. You've got to play the shot that you want to play, and we just know what the consequences are. And they might go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of clearing it. I'll do that. Yeah, are you happy to do that? Yeah, great. But fundamentally with doubles, golf, croquet, I'm always looking to bring awareness to my partner's game, but letting them play the game they want to play. And then I'll adapt to it if I'm more experienced. Um, I think association's really different because unless you're playing alternate shot doubles, which is an interesting dynamic in itself, I think you can learn a lot from that. Assuming it we're just having sort of a break each, what you talked about was again going back to that kind of self-judgment bit. Oh, it's more important now because it's not just impacting on me and my game and I might lose. There's also another person that I might be causing to lose as well. I remember having a doubles game with Aston in the I could not swing straight. We were playing alternate shot. I was just shanking it all over the place, and we just ended up laughing about it. And in the end, it was Kibble and Roger Mills just pulled out the most unworldly turn to beat us, but we should have won it really.
They beat us that year. Yeah.
Sorry, that was
they beat us that year as well.
I think yeah. They were just playing ridiculous croquet, and so here's the thing: is like so in association and golf, let your partner know if you give them permission to intervene. If I was in the middle of a break and I was thinking, God, this is an absolute sack of spanners and it's like horrible. First of all, I know that I've had experience of doing that and pulling it all back together. But I might go and have a joke with my partner about it, going like, it's just like one of the worst breaks I've ever played. I went, but you know what? What do I want? I am going to pull this back together. But yeah, just so you know, this is not my normal break. So I have a bit of a joke about it. Vocalizing it. So in the home internationals once, I was playing a match and that game, best of three, was 1-1. In that game, I had to win that game, and I was on a finishing turn for Wales to win that little mini test thing against another country. And I was going around, I looked up, and there's the rest of the Welsh team just standing by the side watching me. So and this is the way I deal with it. I just sort of looked at Winston. I said, it's quite important then, this one, guys, is it? And I just carried on. So I like to vocalize it, and because it gives me permission to recognize it, as you said, this kind of awareness, different meaning, reset, move it, gives me a chance to stop and do something different. I don't know any teammate that's going to judge me for playing awfully because we've all done it. We've all had days where we literally couldn't hit anything. We were playing, I'm playing with Ian Lines last year in the counties. I just wasn't in a good place. I reckon I played like a 16 handicap at least. And that is, for me, shocking. I genuinely was playing that badly. And I got really annoyed and frustrated with about it. And guess what happened? I got worse and worse and worse. Whereas I should have just laughed at it going, well, there we go. Isn't it funny? Like back to the early days. So don't make it heavier than it is. It's croquet, right? It's a game of croquet. It's a game of croquet. Don't get too attached to the outcome. Find a way to catch it, be aware of the process, reset and move on. Like if you lose a game of croquet, no one's dying, fundamentally. If you treat it like that, you're putting pressure on you. It's actually going to make it more likely you'll lose.
Well, what's the time? Oh gosh, look, it's nearly past. I'm so sorry, but it's been fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. You've been incredibly generous with your time and your knowledge. And
yes, thank you.
All of us, everybody, I know everyone's that has been watching, and me, we're all super grateful. It's been amazing. I do think we might have to get you back on to do another one, because I only asked half of the questions, although fortunately other people did have similar questions. So I think we covered quite a lot anyway. But thank you so much. It's been amazing.
No, absolute pleasure. Yeah, and if anyone ever sees me at tournaments and stuff, whether it's counties, whatever, just if you want to have a chat about mindset, just come and say hello. yeah, it's about, I think I made about 5 different notes coming on here, and I think I've dealt with 2 of them. So,
Oh, well, I think that's it. We're definitely going to have to come back and do another one at some point later in the season. For anyone that's watching, I have Marcus Evans with me next week, who is actually going to be we're going to be talking about handicap play, all about handicap play, because I think there's something like 8,500 members of the CA, the Croquet community. And of course, yes, there's 6 Mac players, but there's a lot of the rest of us. And so I kind of want to cover all aspects of croquet, because I love it and love talking about it. So join me if you can next time. And yeah, once again, thanks, Rich. You've been amazing.
thank you for having me as your guest. I've absolutely loved it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Brill. Well, see you later, everyone. Bye bye, and catch you soon. It's ended.